You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hi, listeners. I'm Bela Musitz, host for this episode of the 15 Minutes Share Your Voice podcast, where we talk with top-notch law firms and attorneys about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help your law firm accomplish its objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and to make sure you're getting the best return on your investment, your firm needs to have a better website and better content marketing. Gladiator Law uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com, where you can schedule a free marketing consultation. Today's guest on the podcast is Susan Henner. She is the founder of Henner Law Group, which she started in 2001. Susan focuses solely on immigration matters, and her client list spans Fortune 500 companies, startups, and individuals, where she handles all types of immigration matters. Welcome to the podcast, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about the firm and, some specific practice areas.
Well, we are solely within the immigration field. We're based in White Plains, New York, but because immigration is federal, we could practice anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. Our clients either are employers or individuals, both, which is great. And typically we help employers to get visas, green cards, work permits for their employees. Or other times we help employees who are in need of immigration services to get visas, green cards, and other immigration related services.
Yeah, I think, I certainly didn't realize this early in my career, that if you're not a legal resident of the United States, if a company wants to hire you to work for them, there are some things that need to be taken care of. And that's what you assist with.
Yes, exactly. You either need a visa or a work permit or a green card or to be a citizen in order to be authorized to legally work here in the US. It's not like you could come here as a visitor and just go to work, similar to, if someone from the US, if we were to go abroad to Europe, for example, we can't just walk into the UK and just start working. You have to have special permits to do so.
Right. And it's the employer's responsibility to make sure that that person is authorized or can legally work here. Is that correct?
In most cases, yes. Now, I was going to say there are some categories where the employee is responsible for getting a visa. And those are special cases like actors or someone who's coming train or on a student visa. Then the person seeking to work or study would be responsible for getting their own visa. But if it's a company looking to hire an employee, the employer is generally responsible for helping to obtain that visa or work permission.
And how does, let's say I'm a company and I found the perfect employee, but they happen to be from Germany. How long does the process take for me to kind of go through all of this?
Usually it depends on what type of visa we're doing. So there are lots of different non-immigrant visa categories, which allows a worker to come here temporarily. There are visas based on someone who has a professional degree and is coming here for a certain number of years. There are intercompany transfer visas, which are called L visas. So if the company has, for example, an office in Germany and wants to transfer that employee, that's pretty quick, a couple of months for a visa. And that visa could be for up to 7 years. And then there are visas like e-visas where a company is investing in a new business or an existing business in the US. And we actually have to create a business plan and show the investment and do all sorts of things to get the company up and ready to do business in the US. And then we apply for the visa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this since 2001. So have things gotten more complicated or have they gotten easier as time has gone by?
I would say more complicated.
Mm,
I've been working in the field since 95. I've been
mm,
on my own 2001. But I would say, back in the day, it was definitely less stringent, less requirements. And it seems to be, under the last two administrations, there seem to be more requirements added, and USCIS has more rules regarding to each. And every year they refine the case law and they refine the regulations, but there's never been a complete immigration overhaul, which needs to be done with the whole
yeah,
system.
yeah,
So that's hopefully coming, and we've been talking about it for years.
yeah. And so how big is your law firm? How many attorneys are there?
We have three attorneys and paralegals. We have two, and we have some summer interns and a receptionist. And, we focus only on immigration law, which is very interesting. I think a lot of firms try to dabble in immigration,
Mm,
enough work where you really need to focus and know the changes in the law and what's changing every day, because there's new information that comes out just about every day in the field.
yeah, it really does seem like a subspecialty of law, and one where you don't want to have someone who dabbles in brain surgery. You want to have someone who does it every day, and I think that's a good analogy here as well.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like a lot of clients, especially if it's an individual case, like say you have someone from India who wants to bring over mom and dad, they're here with green
Mm,
cards or they're citizens. A lot of times they're apt to hire someone just from their home country or because that lawyer speaks their language, rather than look for a lawyer who's most qualified. And they can end up in quite a bit of hot water. And a lot of time I end up bailing out people who've made mistakes and having to start the case over again. And we
mm,
see that there are sometimes just some not so great lawyers out there who practice immigration law who think they could do it just because they speak other languages. So
yeah,
that's uh,
yeah. So you said you do you have corporate clients and you have individuals. Let's talk about the corporate clients for a little bit. How do you get those customers? How do they find you?
a lot of it's word of mouth. Some of it is from HR representatives. So someone in human resources will find us, especially, in the New York tri-state area. They'll look up, from advertising or just online or from word of mouth from other companies. Who did you use to get visas for your employees? And they'll come to us and they'll say, we have a student who's working here with a visa and we'd like to convert them to a real work visa or get a green card, and we'll start the process that way. Referrals in from a lot of times from other lawyers. I'll get
Oh,
a
okay.
another lawyer who does real estate, for example, and they'll say, I had a client who asked me the other day they need a visa. Can you help with that? And so we'll get a lot of referrals that way as well. And often, it's a company, someone who's just a business owner, and they say, we need to transfer our employees from overseas or bring them in. Can you help us with that process? Just knowing that that's what we do.
Yeah.
So those are for the
It
employer.
it sounds like this is a process that employers also need to plan for because it's going to take some time. This is it's not going to take a month. It sounds like it because you said the easy one takes like 3 months.
Yeah,
So it's something that an employer, if they're thinking about this, really needs to start planning it and engaging with yourself, but to start the process and get it going.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll get an employer who says, I need this person here in like 3 weeks. And it's like, oh, and you could pay certain expedite fees on some cases to try to get a visa approved very quickly if the employer really has a need. But those are at $2,500 immigration charges to expedite it. And the fastest you could get it approved, even from the day you submit it, is 15 business days.
Okay.
So with the expedite, just, something to know in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what about the individuals? You because you also do this for individuals. How do those clients find you?
A lot of, again, word of mouth, also within certain communities. So, for example, if I help someone in the Ecuadorian community and they like my services, they'll refer people at their church, people within their community, people they know need help. I also had one gentleman who was detained down in Texas for a long time, and he referred the person next to him in the cell next to him in the cell next to him. I had a bunch of inmates at the same ICE facility who we were able to help, even though they were from different backgrounds and different countries. So that often happens as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like with many service businesses, reputation is really important, and that reputation gets spread, from existing clients to, and that's one of the great feeders. Are there outbound things that you do to get clients?
We do some SEO optimization on our website. We definitely do a little bit of online advertising, Google, Google Maps, that type. There are also, some legal organizations that, we do services through that, would recommend our services or do discounts. I also volunteer a lot in the community. So
Mm,
my law school, I'm a mentor for younger students. So we do take some pro bono cases. And I
yes.
feel it's a feeder to other cases and paying cases. Once your name is out there, people know that you do a good job and they say, well, can you help this client for a little bit of a reduced fee? And most times we're able to do that, because I have my own firm, and that's the beauty of it.
Yes. Very, very nice. Now, one of the things you mentioned is that this is sort of a subspecialty. So you do get uh, clients or referrals from other attorneys, maybe a real estate attorney or a corporate attorney or something. How do you reach out to those clients, those attorneys, I should say? How do you get your name out to these other law firms that this is your subspecialty, and they should be referring their special cases to you?
Well, one thing is local bar associations. So I was the head of the Westchester County Bar Association, has an immigration
Mm,
committee. I served on that for many years, and I was the head, the co-chair for that. I speak in the community a lot. We're doing a speaker series at the end of next month on immigration law and criminal law. So we'll be speaking to lawyers of the Yonkers Bar Association. So that's another way. And I belong to a networking group, which has mostly, it's called USA 500. And we associate mostly with other professionals, which include mainly lawyers, accountants, CPAs, and it's meeting other people in the field. You're constantly going out there, meeting people and talking about what we do.
excellent, excellent. There's a fair number of other attorneys who listen to this podcast. That's one of the markets. And so I think this notion of this proactive outreach that you do, bar associations, giving talks and getting involved in the community and getting involved in the professional community is really important. What sort of percentage of time do you devote to that?
I would say every week, a few hours for sure. I'm on two boards in my community for my children's school. Also, people know what I do.
Yeah.
Definitely a meeting or two a week with, I'm in a women's networking group also. So there's a meeting tomorrow night for that, for example. And then next week is the USA 500. And then, as part of that, you're required to have smaller group breakfasts or dinners or coffees or meetups where you're meeting one on one with the people in the group. So I'd say every week, or I'm trying to get out there and meet people and speak about what I do. And I think that's really, really important, and that people don't realize how important that is to growing your business.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. So let's go way back. What made you decide to become an attorney?
Oh, an attorney. That's a good one. I think back in college, I actually started off as an art student, and I, very creative, everything else. And at the same time, I was taking an international law class. and I just fell in love with the class. And I switched my major, and that was it. It was just from there. And then when I was in law school, what drew me to immigration law, I was mostly interested in international law, and they didn't have a lot of opportunities for international law for American students. I wanted to work at the United Nations. They said, "Oh no, we reserve that for our foreign students."
Mm.
Ended up working at Caresen, which is the Central American Refugee Center, and working with asylees and refugees, and I loved it. And then one of my professors hired me to write a book with him. And then from there, I worked for an immigration firm third year. And the rest was it just followed naturally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And when you graduated from law school, you went to work for another firm?
I worked for a couple of firms my first few years. I did the big firm thing. I worked for the major immigration firms that exist in the country. And I loved it. I did, but it was mostly corporate based. And I wanted to really focus on individuals as well. I sort of liked that piece as well, where you did the asylum cases and felt like you were making a difference. So I felt
Sure.
like there's a balance between the corporate and the individual cases. And it was hard to do that at a bigger firm. And it was also hard to manage I was just getting married and I wanted kids, and, to balance that corporate home life also. So in 2001, I opened my own firm. And I've been on my own ever since. And now
Yeah.
we're slowly growing our firm for sure.
So
Over here.
what were some of the uh, let me take a step back. Did you like wake up one day and said, "Okay, I'm going to open my own firm," or was it more of a thought provoking longer process?
It was a little longer. It was, I had tried working for several large firms, and I just said, I don't think I could do this and balance having a
Yeah.
family, married, and everything else. It just seemed like, the firms were, you had to be there 7:30 in the morning. You couldn't leave before a certain time. Literally back then we had beepers. You'd go out to lunch, you'd get to eat. You could it was just being on that type of beck and call all the time. It was just too much to do all at once. And a few of my clients were not happy with the larger law firm setup. And so I talked to them and they said, we'd come with you if you did your own
Oh,
things. 3 or 4 that came with me when I went on my own, and that was that. And I didn't have a lot of money. I started in a shared office space with 3 or 4 clients, and I started advertising, and the rest is history. And now I have literally hundreds and hundreds of cases.
yeah. Yeah. What were if you reflect back on those early days of starting your own firm, what were some of the sort of unexpected challenges that you came across?
Um, I think learning how to do certain things. How do you put together a retainer agreement? How do
Mm.
you maintain an escrow account? Things like that no one teaches you. But there are organizations like for immigration, there's American Immigration Lawyers Association, which you join, and they have a new member committee where you could sit in on certain courses for that and learn how to do that, and being educated about that. So it was a matter of learning it and speaking to other lawyers who had started their own firm. Some of the bar committees have new member committees where you can connect with other people
Mm.
in different fields, and just saying, hey, can I take a look at your retainer agreement? What has to be in there? And connecting with the bar association, say, what are the requirements for advertising? What can I or can't I do? Learning how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point because when you join a big firm, all of that stuff sort of magically happens.
Right.
and
It's there.
but you have your own firm, it doesn't magically happen, and you or someone else needs to figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
So
also
let
the bill voicing is difficult.
mm,
What do you do when your client doesn't pay? What type of billing or payment arrangements do you have with the clients?
yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this other question here. So are there, as many professions are, they're dominated by certain types of individuals. And in this
Mhm.
case, I'm thinking male and female, right? And attorneys seem pretty heavily dominated by males. Have there been extra challenges for you being a woman in the legal field?
I don't feel so much in this field. I feel like immigration's a nice mix of men and women. I haven't felt like that, so that
Oh,
part's
good.
good. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Uh, you said that you were doing some outreach into your where you went to law school, and are you mentoring some folks now?
Well, I work with a group called the Safe Passage Program, and I helped found that program years ago with one of my old professors. And what it is, it's helping children at the border who come in who are undocumented, and it's finding them appropriate representation within the legal community. And we also were mentoring other attorneys to teach them
Mm,
how to do this type of work, whether it's in law school or following law school. So a lot of, I'll do some pro bono work for them, or certain times I'll get a call from them saying, we help this lawyer and teach them how to do this type of case or that type of case. And it's fun. And, I used to go down probably once a month down to Federal Plaza, which is where our immigration is located. And we would really stand up as a friend of the court and stand up for the children until they found a lawyer. But now they have a whole staff. I mean, I think they have a staff of 25, 26 people. At Safe Passage has grown so much that they don't need us to do that anymore. But I'm still on their panel as a mentor attorney. And when someone needs help, they do reach out to us, which is great.
yeah, excellent. That's really great. Was there someone in your career that mentored you or sort of gave you great advice that you'd like to mention?
I think that would be the professor I worked with, who's Lenny Benson, and she's just amazing. And she's the one who founded Safe Passage, and I served on the board with her. And she's really an inspiration. And, from time to time, she'll reach out to me and say, I have this, person who reached out to me and they don't qualify through Safe Passage. Can you help them? And we do. We all work together and try to help those in need when it comes up. So it's rewarding, which is why I love my field. I'm not sitting behind a desk doing paperwork all day.
Yeah,
So
excellent. Excellent. That sounds wonderful. So, if there's someone listening to this who's thinking about becoming an attorney, uh, do you have any words of advice for them?
hmm. I think it's finding your passion, finding it is what you love to do within the fields of law. So it doesn't feel like work. To me, this doesn't feel like work every day. I feel like every day I come in and I feel like it's very rewarding. It's challenging, but I feel like I'm really helping people. Um, for example, I have a case on Friday that's coming up, and we're going to end up getting green cards for this family. And they have a special needs child who's in a wheelchair, who has cerebral palsy, and they've been here for 20 years. And the child's probably 10, 11 years old. And they know they cannot take this child back to their country and get the child services.
Yeah.
And we've already talked to the government, and this family is going to end up, because of what we did for them, end up being able to stay here forever and permanently. And to me, it's just beautiful thing to watch that this family gets to stay together. They get to be here and um, become permanent residents of this country. And I feel like that's what we're based on, this whole country, and it's just a very rewarding experience.
Yeah. No,
So
that's a great story.
yeah, and I think once you find your passion in law, whether it's real estate or criminal law or immigration, whatever it is that you like to do, it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So earlier you had talked a little bit about work-life balance, and that, in a big law firm, as an associate or a junior partner, that's a real challenge. Uh, what kind of advice would you have for maybe a young attorney who's, getting ready to graduate or will be graduating shortly and is considering joining a big firm or maybe a small boutique firm like yourself, or, maybe hanging their own shingle? What kind of thoughts do you have there?
Working in the big firm also, I thought it gave me all the skills I needed to eventually go out on my own.
Mm,
I think it was definitely very valuable. There was nothing that I didn't learn. And I feel like I saw every type of case. So that when it came time to go on my own, there's no case that walks through my door that I haven't seen before. So I think it's really important to learn the correct way, whether it's finding a mentor or working at a firm that's going to teach you, or getting those skills before you just go at it alone. I think for me personally, I thought it would be very scary just to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and not having any background at all. Because again, you're working with people, you're serving the public, you want to do it right.
yeah.
I feel like a lot of attorneys, a great way to do it also, for example, if you're interested in criminal law, look at legal aid or look at the DA's office. Those are great organizations, or, Bronx Defenders here in New York, great organizations that will train you, that will mentor you before you make that leap to open your own practice or go out on your own. Great ways to learn.
That's wonderful, wonderful advice. So if people want to find out more about you and the firm, what's the best place for them to do that?
We have a website. It's whiteplainsimmigrationlawyer.com. So that's one way. And we have a lot of information on there. Or they could feel free to reach out to me. Our contact information is there. I'm on, definitely on email. We do free consultations if anyone has immigration questions, and we hire interns, and, if people are looking to get into the field, I always give advice, and I talk to law students a lot about how to break into the fields and where they should start.
That's great. That's really gracious of you to do that. So starting to wrap up here, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think it's just, the one thing is just to know about immigration law in general is, with all the changes and everything with COVID, it's just important to understand that things are taking longer than they used to. The consulates basically shut down for 2 years all over the country. The State Department had pulled back consular officers. USCIS is working slower than it ever has. And it's a shame that the clients get upset and they think it's the lawyer's fault. It's like, oh, why is my case taking so long? And, sometimes they try to switch lawyers or switch firms and things like that. And not always the attorney's fault in any given situation. So, I just like to remind people of that. But, I'll get people who will call me. I had a client yesterday who called, a potential client, who said, my lawyer's not doing their job. My case is taking this amount of time. And then you look it up and you say, well, that's how long they're taking in general. You could switch to my firm, but I'm not going to be able to do so much more than, this other attorney. You have a good attorney, stick with them. And that's just something to remind clients and people watching this, that lawyers are not magicians. We still have to work within the system and the laws as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Wonderful way to wrap up. Susan, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. You were wonderful. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.